Oh, hi. You're back, and I see you brought some friends. Let me introduce myself to your friends because, well, we've been acquainted before. My name is Chance Bingen. I'm the Principal Technical Marketing Engineer for Virtualization here at NetApp. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about ONTAP Tools. Now, we've already talked a little bit about it to get a little bit of familiarity. So this is simply the next video in this series. Be sure to continue and see the next video in the series where we dig deeper into some of these topics. For today, we're going to talk about installing and configuring ONTAP Tools. So here we are in vCenter. Now I've already deployed the OVA, or in Lab on Demand, the OVA is already deployed for you. It's easy. I don't need to tell you how to deploy an OVA. You're an experienced vCenter admin. You know how to do that very well. So let's jump over and look at the ONTAP Tools Manager. This will be the first thing you need to do. So you'll have the Getting Started page after you log in, and we'll go down to vCenters. Now here you can click Add and supply all the vCenter information. In this Lab on Demand instance, we only have the one vCenter, and you can see I've already added vc1.demo.netapp.com. Now, if I wanted to do multi-tenancy, I would want to associate a storage backend that I had already added to storage backends. For purposes of today, we're going to keep it simple and just go with a single vCenter. So let's jump back over to vCenter, and we'll see how to further configure ONTAP Tools. So we'll go down to the ONTAP Tools extension. This will take us to the overview page, and we can see an overview of some of the things that we've already got configured in this environment. Now, we've already added one storage backend here, so you can see the virtual machines and data stores for that array, and you can see a little capacity overview up at the top. We can scroll down, and then we can see ESXi host compliance. Now, this is a handy tool that checks all your ESXi hosts for compliance with NetApp best practices. And if they're out of compliance, it'll give you a simple, easy-to-use wizard to reset those settings on those hosts, things like certain HBA settings, things like NFS queue depth, TCP heap size, all that kind of stuff. And it'll take care of it for you automatically. Just taking a tour around the interface here, storage backends, you can see I've already added cluster 1. I can expand it and see it has one storage virtual machine. We'll talk a little bit more about NetApp clusters and storage virtual machines in a future episode. I can click into that, and I can see some of the status of this storage virtual machine. You can see it has NFS, VMFS, and vVols as available data store types. You can see it supports NFS v3, v41, and iSCSI. In a future video, we'll enable NVMe, and I'll show you how to configure NVMe over TCP data stores. Host cluster relationships. Here's where we would see if we had configured the vSphere Metro storage cluster solution. And you'll see the relationships between the different clusters that make up the stretched storage in your VMSC deployment. Settings. Here is where you would see if we had enabled the VASA provider, you could configure the settings for that. We can set our threshold settings for alarms, for when it'll pop an alarm into vCenter to help alert you when you're running out of storage. You can actually deploy the NFS VAAI plugin directly from ONTAP Tools. You simply upload the version you want into ONTAP Tools, and then you can click the button to install it on all of your ESXi hosts. If you have a lot of them, this is a really quick way to push it out to all your hosts. And you can manage network address. So this allows you to constrict what network segments ONTAP Tools is going to use for provisioning and managing storage. We can also go down and look at some of the reports. We can see our virtual machine reports, including total IOPS, min and max capacity, uptime, a number of different things about the virtual machines. Now we can also expand them and look and see which data stores those VMs live on and see how we're doing there. We can look at our data store reports, and we can see our data stores at a glance, how they're doing with throughput, latency, IOPS, what type of data store it is, and how much space is utilized in the data store. So as you can see, it's very easy to configure. You just add the vCenter into ONTAP Tools Manager. That will register the plugin, and then you can manage everything else directly through the vCenter user interface. like you're used to doing for all of your normal day-to-day activities. And again, as I mentioned in the previous video, again, if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. Everything I've shown you today can be automated through very simple and easy to use REST APIs. Simply authenticate, and then you can tell it to do whatever you want it to do. And in many cases, it'll do many tasks all at once with one REST API. So now that is a nice overview of all the settings in ONTAP Tools. Let's go back into inventory, and we can see some of the user interface extensions for storage. So here, this is the data store that we provisioned in the last video. We can see the storage details, what cluster this data store lives on, what storage VM it lives on, what the platform type is, and other storage details, including things like auto grow and snapshot reserve, for example. We can also click on LUN details. Now, because this is an iSCSI-based data store, it's actually on a logical unit number. And here we can see the NAA number as well as the SCSI serial number. This is kind of important and really helpful for troubleshooting, because anytime you see something in VMware logs, if it's referring to storage, it's always referring to the storage by the NAA number. So this is a nice handy translator that'll help you figure out what LUN is throwing things into your logs. Likewise, for NFS-based data stores, it shows similar things. Now, the storage details are pretty similar, but for NFS, we don't have a LUN, we have essentially an NFS export or an NFS share. So here we can see the path to the mount. We can see the protocol that we're mounting with here, NFS 3. Again, ONTAP also supports NFS 4.1, as does VMware. We can see the file system, and then we can see the permissions on the share itself, or the export rules. Now, I definitely want you to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video where we dive even deeper into some of this functionality, including how to configure NVMe over fabrics. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.